So thanks for being here today, you guys. This is OC Art Studios KIDLIT panel with my friends and illustrator buddies, Ann Appert and Lauren Pierre. And I'm so excited that they're here today to talk to you about being an illustrator, working on graphic novels, working on a picture book. And I met Lauren and Ann through Twitter, through our Thursday KIDLIT art chats. And if you haven't seen our KIDLIT art chats on Twitter, Ann, you are one of the moderators, are you not?
Yes, I am.
Yes, along with, is Sandra Salisbury still doing it? Or she's
taking a little bit of a break now, but Scout Underhill and I are both still moderating.
Okay, so Ann and Scout are both the moderators for the Twitter weekly KIDLIT art chat, and Lauren Pierre is a energetic participant in that as well. You can find them both on Twitter. I think that I shared that in the Discord, but today what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be having an informal conversation with them about what their path to publishing has been like, their experience as creators in the publishing world. They're going to share their work with you. They're going to talk about how they got into it and how they work currently and all kinds of good stuff. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and let's see, let me pin Ann and then I'll pin Lauren so you guys can see. All right, so also, by the way, if anybody has questions, please feel free to type it up in the chat and then make sure you put question by it so that I can see it, and I'll just copy paste it and make sure we ask that at the very end. So I have a couple of questions for Ann and Lauren that I'm going to ask, and we're just going to chat and talk, and then they'll share their work, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. Okay, so Ann and Lauren, first of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time. And the big, very broad question is, when did you first know that you wanted to make picture books or graphic novels? And let's start with Ann.
Great.
If you don't mind.
No, not at all. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I love talking about books, and I don't get to do it very often during the pandemic. So this is exciting for me. But how did I know I wanted to do picture books? Well, growing up, I was a very voracious reader. I spent all of my summers at the library. I don't know if that was my parents' way of getting us out of the house or if they were trying to instill in us a love of reading, but whatever it was for, it worked. And so reading was always very important to me as a kid. I actually was more of a writer when I was a kid. I used to love writing stories and poems, and then me and my sisters would act them out or play pretend with them. So storytelling has always been a huge part of my life. It didn't actually occur to me that picture books was a career that somebody could have until I was applying for colleges, and I had planned on going to school to become an architect. Because I liked drawing. I wasn't a doodler or like that great at art in high school, but I liked it and I was good at math. So I figured I'll be an architect. And then one of the schools that I was going to apply to, I got their like little brochure of all their programs, and illustration was listed. And it was kind of like oh my God, I didn't know this was a thing. Like you could actually go to school for illustration. And so I changed course and applied to illustration school instead.
That's hilarious. I just want to jump in because I also wanted to be an architect, but that's because they didn't have any other options. Like, you know, at the time, there was, if you said you were interested in art, well, a job, you know, where you can make money was architect. And when I got to school, or when I was looking for classes, all I saw was I saw architecture, and then I saw drawing and painting. And it's really, I don't know how it worked for you, but when I was looking for colleges to apply for, that, you know, the colleges came to my high school. I don't know how this was for you, Lauren, but Sarah Steinberg says yes. So she's working as an architect right now, and she's building her path to become a represented art author illustrator in our classes. So yeah, the colleges would come and they would only have like a few majors. And yeah, thankfully you saw illustration. I didn't even see illustration when I was in school. It was just like fine art, and then when I found fine art, it was like drawing and painting. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
we didn't have
oh,
people come to my high school because I went to a very small, very strange high school that
where,
didn't
okay,
actually that
where are
didn't
you
actually
in the
have
world?
art.
Tell everybody where you are in the world or where you grew up.
I grew up in New Jersey, so but I will say the school I went to was not representative of this state at all, but they didn't have an art program. So a lot of my knowledge about art came from me finding it myself. But because I'm so close to Manhattan, I was able to, a lot of the art schools there have like portfolio days where they would have a lot of colleges come to one campus. And by doing that, I was able to see what was out there in
Oh,
terms of illustration and art
thank
programs.
thank goodness. Thank goodness you were like kind of at least near that. So that's really great. So Lauren, what was your experience like? When did you first know you wanted to make picture books or actually graphic novels? Yeah.
Let's see. Probably like late middle school, early high school. So, I had always liked like comic strips, like Peanuts. What like so
Charlie Brown.
yeah, Charlie Brown, newspaper, Sunday Funny, stuff like that. So for a longest time, I wanted to be a cartoonist, but that didn't really work out. Like the stories I wanted to tell were too expansive, basically, for the format.
Mm,
Because growing up, I was surrounded by books, picture books, novels. I watched cartoons, animated movies, lots of Disney, lots of cartoon, lots of TV. So I was kind of just surrounded by a lot of visual, these this visual medium with these expansive storylines and world building. So from there, I kind of, for a minute, wanted to get into animation. But once I realized that I could take my love of storytelling, my love of art, put it together and write books, that's kind of what kickstarted me to get into picture book writing and then later graphic novels. When I read my first graphic novel, which of course was Smile by Raina Telgemeier.
of course, yeah.
And from there, the rest was history, basically. I wrote a couple storybooks like as high school projects because I was homeschooled. So my projects for like my senior year, junior year were these picture books that I wrote, illustrated, self-published. My mom would help me edit, and we tried marketing them, but it never really took off because self-publishing is very hard because you are your own publicist, you are your own book designer, formatter, editor, and people don't really want to deal with self-published books because the quality isn't always that great,
It's hard to
so
do all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, battling the stigma while also trying to make a quality product, it just got really hard.
Yeah.
So after spending high school, trying to, I'm gonna make it on my own, I'm gonna self-publish, gonna make these books, I was like, you know what, I need an agent.
Yeah.
So which
Yeah.
is so like it was I think my first, like, the summer I started college was when I really threw myself into, okay, I need to build my portfolio, I need to write these story pitches, I need to get myself in front of agents, but it boiled down to a matter of how. And unfortunately, there weren't that many resources near me to pursue animation, because art colleges are expensive, and I live in Florida, so all the art schools are either way down south, way up north, or in Orlando. And when you're in South Florida, you're kind of away from most of these schools. So art school was out of the question. But then
Mhm.
come to community college, right? They don't really cater to artists unless you're like a graphic designer or a photographer or like fine arts, drawing and painting. And that's not cartooning, that's not animation, that's not sequential art. So a lot of it was independent study. The internet helped a great deal, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, and the books I would read, and the how to draw books that I would check out and buy. And I just sort of studied, until eventually I was ready to start querying and pitching.
Okay, you got really, you got a lot
Yeah.
of information in that little answer there. Which had a drop?
Probably more than you were looking for, but
No, that's great, because we're gonna go deeper. We're gonna go deeper
Yeah.
into that. So, because I did want to ask, like, the next question was like, what did you do to get where you are now? Which is a very broad question, which has, you know, the long path of how you got from like knowing, you know, and knowing in school that you wanted to become an illustrator to actually becoming an illustrator. And Lauren, you already hit on that. Like you figured out that sequential stuff was where you wanted to be. You knew that animation wasn't going to do it. You knew that you couldn't get that information out there. You had to look for it on your own, and you did that on your own, which is great. And you know, self-studied. That's like really great. I mean, that's what OCR Studios is about too. We're all just kind of, you know, self-studying, and with me and the other educators that I have in our school, you know. So Anne, like, what was your path once you decided illustration and then you were working in illustration? What was your path like to get to, you know, where you kind of are now? Or maybe like right up before, let's say right up before you decided to, or before you got an agent, because I want to talk about like getting the agent process in a little bit.
Okay. Yes. It's a lot of years to cover.
Yeah.
So like I had mentioned, the school that I went to didn't have an art program. So as soon as I impulsively decided that I wanted to go to art school,
Impulsively?
it was
Really?
pretty impulsive. Yeah. When I told friends at school, they were like, "Wait, you do art?"
They didn't even know?
No. I ended up taking, again, my school didn't have an art program. So one of my parents' friends was a watercolorist. And so she gave me some lessons over the summer. And then somebody I knew who had gone to the same high school as me was in an art program at another college. So she gave me private lessons so that I could put a portfolio together, because I had no idea even what a portfolio really was. And then I had really wanted to go to art school in the city, but like Lauren said, art school is very expensive. However, being close to Manhattan, there's the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is a public school. And New York does a better job than New Jersey of making their public schools affordable. So I applied to FIT and got in, and I actually started there with studying fashion illustration.
Yeah.
It was within the illustration program, but at the time, the illustration program didn't have live models. So I decided to do fashion illustration because at that time I hadn't done a lot of drawing of people, and they had live models in every single class. So I have an associate's degree in fashion illustration. And then I continued there and got my bachelor's of fine arts in illustration with a minor in English, because again, I've always loved writing. So I knew that that was something I wanted to do. So I took all of the writing classes that they had there as well.
That's great.
And then when I graduated, I probably had about a year of not doing much. So like, I think I was just like overwhelmed, because again, like during art school, it was all about learning how to create art for me, because it was the first time I had ever been in a classroom learning art. It was the first time that was a real thing for me. And so I had a year where I kind of just was like, oh my gosh, now I have all these student loans I have to pay, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, because like you don't really make money doing books. So I did get over that. I joined the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators pretty quickly after. I've been a member for, I think, 9 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky because the New Jersey chapter is, well, pre-pandemic, the New Jersey chapter was a very active chapter. We have conferences. We often had days where, like portfolio days, where somebody would come and teach you how to put together a portfolio specific to KIDLIT art. Which was helpful because in college, my classes ranged from possibly anything that they could imagine that an illustrator might get a job in. So there wasn't a ton of focus on children's books. So yeah, for the next couple of years, I basically did two things. I worked on creating a picture book portfolio and working 3 or 4 different jobs to pay off my school debt.
I think that's just like kind of what a lot of people do is, at least from what I understand, from what I've talked to other people, is that they get out of school, they get out of art school, unless, you know, you're like Lauren and you're in school and you just start working because you're just so dang good. A lot of people are just like working to try to make their way, you know, after they graduate. But Lauren, you're not even graduated yet, are you?
By this time next month, I will be.
Okay, and you have a publishing deal. Just kind of talk to us, because this is kind of crazy. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were like, God, if we could have just got our stuff together, like when we were, you know, younger. Like, I know so many people, and I was thinking of you, like, if I just had my stuff together when I was younger, like, imagine where I'd be. Yeah. So how did you get from, you know, just you're working and you're doing your art classes and you're taking classes in school, and how did you get from where, I know surely every journey is unique. Thank you for emphasizing that. I have to remember that, because I'm always saying that, you know, don't compare your path to other people's. But there's some people's paths are just so remarkable. You just go, huh? So yeah, so tell us, I'd love for them to hear about how that kind of came to be, how you're taking classes and you got a publishing deal.
I'm going to be honest.
Yes.
It was an accident.
That's beautiful. So it was a happy accident and you were all, you know, doing all the right things.
So
right?
Let me tell you what happened. Before I even thought of pitching and getting an agent and all this book deal, I was trying my hand at making a webcomic. So like the story that ended up being the pitch that I sent to my agent, and then who then sent it to my publisher, was first a webcomic, little slice of life, you know, all ages. And I struggled with it a lot because, you know, on the internet, there's not really a sense of audience because, you know, the internet is for adults, essentially. You know, I mean, there are kids, but it's not like a library or bookstore where it's like, these are children's books, these are adult books, these are middle grade, you know, teens. It's like all ages or not, basically. So trying to balance, like, okay, I want to make a comic for kids, but like the internet is full of adults, so it's all ages comics. So will it be boring for adults? How do I make it interesting? Now kids don't get it. So I was going back and forth for at least 6 months trying to figure out, okay, is this too childish? Is this too mature? Can I keep up with the schedule? And it was just off and on rebooting this project until one day in 2019, I was in the computer lab at my school checking Twitter when I should have been writing a paper. And I saw that my timeline was blowing up with something called DV Pit. So I'm like, what is DV Pit? And so DV Pit, I think, is short for Diversity Pitch. It is a online Twitter pitching event for marginalized creators. So, you know, Black, Indigenous, you know, people of color, LGBT, disabled, etc. And I'm like, if I participate in this, I could get an agent and they help me get a book deal. So I grab some pages from my webcomic, write up a little pitch, and I just send it, and I go back to writing my paper. I come home and I check the tweet, and the tweet has moderately blown up. At least a handful of agents and editors have engaged with this tweet and are like, hey, send me this. I want to see a pitch for this. So now I'm like, So I spend the next like couple of days writing up like a 1-page pitch, you know, throwing all my art together. And I'm like, here's my story. I send it to a couple editors. I send it to a few agents. And that first round ended in rejections all around. The story wasn't developed enough. The art was sweet. The art was cute. the characters weren't developed, the age range, because I was struggling with making it all ages while also making it for children. So there wasn't really a defined audience, because it felt like it was for little kids, but then the stories were like middle grade and over. And so I was still trying to get out of that mindset. This is not a cartoon, you know, this is comics, and comics need specific audiences. So I pitched again in October. Because the first DV Pit was April 2019. So October 2019, I spent the next year on top of all of my college courses, developing a pitch, you know, drawing new sample pages, redesigning the characters, and I pitched again. And in between that, I was building a list of agents on my own using databases like a manuscript wish list and whatnot to sort of cold query. And those were fun because everyone was telling me the same thing. The art is sweet, the art is cute, you obviously have talent, but this story isn't working. You know, send us something else. And I'm like, I don't have anything else. I'm in
This is what I got.
This is all I got. So it wasn't until, was it 2018? Okay, so I'm sorry, I got the dates wrong. So 2018, this all happened. 2019, spring of 2019 was the final time that I participated in DV Pit. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do. And I pitched again, and I got a little closer, but not quite. A couple people were interested, but those ultimately led to revise and submits, which led to rejections. So I was ready to give up, honestly. At that point, I was like, well, I guess I'll just illustrate other people's stories, because obviously I can't write, you know? But then there was one agent in particular who was persistent about always liking my pitches and wanted to see my work. And she reached out to me personally, because at one point I was like, maybe I should write another story. So I quickly threw together this fantasy pitch that kind of fell apart because I was trying to write something more commercial, because the whole feedback I was getting was, your work's not commercial enough, your art is cute, your stories aren't commercial enough, they're not marketable, I don't know where this would fit in the market. So it's like, I'll just write something marketable. That story ended up not working out. However, it gave me the opportunity to reach out to this specific agent, and we DM'd on Twitter one night. I was like, hey, I know you like this story, but it's falling apart. Do you want to see this story again that I've been working on for the last 3 years of my life? And she's like, sure. So I send that to her. She loves it. And she's been my agent ever since.
What's your agent name again?
And that's part one of how I got my book deal.
And who's your agent again? Tell everybody.
Britt Cease. She just started her own agency, Britt Cease Creative Management, last summer, I believe, or no, last fall.
That's great.
Like last August. Mm-hmm. And she's the best, you know. She respects the craft. She understands each of her clients' specific needs and writing styles. You know, some of her clients use scripts. Some, like me, just work with the outline and thumbnail their scripts. You know, draw the page while writing the dialogue at the same time. She's very encouraging. She gives very strong feedback, good feedback, good constructive feedback. Like, she knows how to elevate your work without changing its essence, which I think is super important, because with the publishing industry as it is, graphic novels are getting very, very popular, but unfortunately, agents don't always know what to do with them because they see the dollar signs, but they don't necessarily understand the format or the craft. Mm-hmm. So to have someone like Britt, who is passionate about comics, understands how difficult it is to navigate this industry as a comics creator, mm-hmm. and sort of just the overall appreciation for the craft and the work that goes into it and the support that's needed to produce you know, these like you got 200-page comics getting done in a year, and that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So to
Mm-hmm.
have someone to advocate for you is super important, and Brit is 100% that person for me.
That is fantastic. Now, how many pages is your graphic novel?
Well, mine is on the shorter end because it's for little kids, like 5 to 8, so it's 96 pages.
Oh,
But yeah, it's not, but it's 3 books, you know,
yeah, yeah.
three 96-page books that need to be done, or at least 2 need to be done by 2024. So
Okay. All right. I want to talk to you about deadlines in a minute. Not in a
okay.
minute, but like later in our process, because deadlines. Mm-hmm. I have some things to say about deadlines, but I do that was a lot of really good information. That the way that you connected with your agent and the way that she's really helpful and encouraging, and in the editorial process, and that she knows what it's like to go through that and navigate that process, and then also just how what was I going to say, just the challenges with connecting with an agent, and just the R&S, the revise and submit, like that is that's something that everyone here should get to know and be really familiar with, that concept of revising and submitting. And Anne, I know you probably had, I would love to hear your experience with that, with submitting, how you connected with your agent, and what that process was like.
Okay, so my journey to being agented was a little different. I recently just switched agents, so I will tell you how I signed with my first agent. But
well, you're at
so,
the same agency, but you have a new, yes.
But I have a new agent.
Yes, because we're agency buddies. Yes.
Yes. So because I had mentioned earlier that I am part of NJ Scbwi, and Prospect Agency is actually located here in New Jersey. So Rachel Orr, who is your agent, comes to a lot of our events. So I had met her at the first New Jersey conference I went to through Mike Ciccatello, who is another one of her clients. And so we had chatted there, and she looked at my portfolio, gave me feedback. Then probably, I would say, maybe the next year we had a critique day, and I purposely signed up for a critique with her and showed her a book dummy, which she loved and gave me feedback on. And I think told me I should send it to her when I revised it, but because I was a moron, didn't realize that that was like actually a real invitation to submit my work.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So we met a couple of times at various New Jersey events, basically, I think over the course of 2 or 3 years. And then in 2018, I was at the New Jersey conference again. And at that point, I had been working with another one of my friends, Mike Malbrough, was mentoring me on portfolio development. And it's actually because of him that I switched to creating all of my art in Procreate, because he looked at my portfolio, saw one of the pieces in it, and compared it to one of my other pieces and said, this is the style you should be working in, but use those color palettes. And so that started a conversation with him and I about like portfolio development. And then I paid him to mentor me for a couple months, which all led to this conference in 2018, where I didn't actually have a critique with Rachel, but she was there. And I actually won an honor at that conference for one of my pieces. And she looked at my portfolio while I was there, and I like kept trying to connect with her because like we knew each other, and like I would have loved to be repped by Rachel because she was awesome and we had talked a bunch at this point. And like I just couldn't get a chance. But then like as I'm passing by her at one point, she grabbed my arm and said, Anne, your portfolio has come such a long way. I especially loved, I had a piece with a bunny and hot air balloons, and which is actually still my Twitter avatar. And one other one.
It's not on the wall behind you, is it? I see hot air balloons behind you.
No, that's a different, I'm obsessed with hot air balloons. So that's a different one. That's the piece that won the honor at that conference,
Okay.
which is why it's still up in my studio.
Yeah.
And then there was one other one, and she said, do you have a story for those? And I did not, but I said, Absolutely, I'm working on them still. And she's like, can you send them to me when you're done with them? I was like, yes, of course. Because everybody says in publishing, always say yes. And then you can take like a month or two or however long it takes to make it your best work. So I'm like, I have at least 3 months to write this and put together a book dummy. Uh, so then, oh, I had the other one was a flying pig. That was the other illustration.
Okay.
So 5 days later, I get an email from her and saying, hey, Anne, we have this new agent at our agency. I showed her your work. She loves it. She would love to talk to you about representation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was Rachel was all for you.
Yes.
And she knew she was interested, but then as luck would have it, there was a new agent and Rachel was like, hey, you need to sign this girl because I like her. And I know that I asked her to do stuff, and she hasn't given me anything, but I'm sure it's going to be fine because she's pretty awesome. So, and who was that?
That was Emma Sector.
Emma,
so so I got on the phone with her. I put together one of those book dummies in 2 days, which I do not recommend. It was terrible, and my hand hurt for 2 months after that.
Oh no.
But yeah, so then I signed with Emma probably 2 weeks after that conference. And then, like I said, she left agenting this, I want to say in February. So at that time, Charlotte Wenger, who is an agent at Prospect, Emma connected us because she said Charlotte would love to represent you. So we had a phone conversation because you should always make sure that you connect with the person who's going to be looking over your contracts.
Yes.
And it went really well, and I got a good vibe from her. So far so good, but it's only been a couple months. So.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting because like the agent artist relationship, it's a relationship, and like Lauren loves Britt, and you love Emma, and now you're working with Charlotte and Charlotte loves your work. So that enthusiasm that an agent has for you, it's like it needs to be mutual, obviously. As creators, at least for me, my whole quest was like, I need to get an agent, right? Like I just need somebody who's gonna like work for me. But when I realized that it wasn't just like getting milk at the store, like it was like you are building a relationship and finding someone that is going to be your cheerleader and is going to really love your work and is going to promote you and help you get your stories told, and has those connections. That's what that's really about. So for you, Scbwi was a huge impact for you in your process. And then for Lauren was just like Twitter, right? Lauren's like Twitter. I mean, but Twitter is really helpful too. I think it's a combination of like really being kind of tapped into the resources that you have available for you. Like Lauren, you're good at Twitter, and I mean, your Twitter game is pretty strong now, and I'd say, Anne, your games is pretty strong too. I'm kind of dropped off the face of the earth the last few months, but that's all right. I think my Twitter game was getting a little bit high, but I think that there's something to be said about understanding where the people are, the agents, you mentioned, Lauren, the manuscript wish list, and that's like the hashtag MSWL, and that's something that I think, isn't there something that they do, like maybe agents put their manuscript wish list on their bios, or maybe not their bios, but you can research agents and see what
there's I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
There's a Twitter hashtag, manuscript wish list, MSWL, and basically when agents will tweet with that hashtag with an idea or a concept that they want to see in their inbox queried to them. But it's not to be confused with manuscript wish list, which is a database of agents and editors that you can use, a site you can use to build your list and find editors, see what they're looking for, agents see what they're looking for, see what they like. The difference is in the spelling. So like one website is manuscript wish list, and then the other one is MS wish list, which is where all the hashtag MSWL tweets go.
I see. Okay. So you had said that you put together a database, like spreadsheet on your own, of the different agents that had initially given you interest in your original pitch.
I did.
Yeah. And you did that on your own, but there's also like querytracker.com. There's other places where you can kind of get information on agents and stuff. But
Query Tracker is good for novelists, and you know, if you have a script. It's really tricky to maneuver when your work is very art based and it's not a picture book, because like they'll have the same set of rules for like novels, like, you know, have the first 10 pages of your script, you know, a link to your portfolio, but then you don't, what if you don't have a script and you just have your art, like how do you use it? I kind of avoided Query Tracker, honestly, because the format was just way too limiting.
Yeah, I think that in the recently there's a new website. I can't remember what it was, that's just lists agents for illustrators. And I can't remember. I know I saw it, and if I can track it down, I'll share it.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, hold on, I can put the link in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you can find it, that'd be great. Is Agents for Illustrators, Taylor. It's so simple. Agents for Illustrators. It's just agentsforillustrators.com or something like that.
I think so. I know it's run by Nyla McGruder. So
yeah,
Agents for Illustrators.
And is that the proper pronunciation? I don't know. I've never pronounced her name before. I only see it.
I hope that's how it's pronounced.
I don't know. I always say Nyla McGruder. So and I don't know, because it's one of those things. Thank you, Taylor.
There we go.
It's one of those names that I only see and I've never heard because I've never met her. But yeah, that's really great. So, let's see. Anne, you had mentioned always say yes. So when someone says, hey, I like your artwork, do you have a story for it? And you don't, you say, yes, of course I do. And then you just work like heck to get it together, right? I mean, what else? Yeah, jots that down. What else would you say are things that you should do when you're kind of in the process of seeking an agent? Are there anything else? It's kind of a random question.
I'm probably like the worst person to ask because I didn't query. So like I knew that wasn't something, like when I signed with my agent, my goal was, because at conferences you often have a window afterwards where you can send stuff to the faculty, whether that's art directors, editors, or agents. They don't do it at the big Scbwi conferences anymore because it's just too many people, but at the smaller chapters they do. So my plan was to go to that conference, connect with agents from there. So I'm the worst person to ask about querying, but I think it's probably smart to just see who else they represent when you're looking at a list of agents, because you don't want somebody whose art is too similar to yours.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got to note that my internet connection is unstable. So
yeah, it was a little wonky where I was like waiting for your words to come in. No, that's great. That's some good advice, that if you're looking for an agent, that you take a look at the roster of their clients to see who they are representing and see if you are someone that could fit in with the work that they're already putting out there.
And also to see who they're selling to, because if they're selling to you want to see what publishers they're selling and what kind of projects they're selling. Because if they're selling to publishers that accept submissions from unagented authors and illustrators, you might not need that agent to get your work out there. But if they're selling to places that only take agented submissions, then that's a good indicator that they'd be able to get your work in front of more people.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the way that you can find out whether or not these publishing houses are accepting unagented manuscripts or unagented dummies is by joining the Scbwi and getting the book. So like what you get, you pay the membership, and that's one of the things that's really valuable. Was something that I utilized is the book, which is basically the entire list of all the different agents and the different publishing houses, and they yeah, and who's open to submissions from unagented authors or illustrators and things like that. So that was really valuable. Did you use that at all, or in your process, Anne, or was it more of just connecting with people through the New Jersey SCBWI?
It was all just through connecting with people. That was what worked for me, which shocked me because I actually am pretty shy and suffer from social anxiety. So I don't know why that worked for me, but making the face-to-face connections was what worked for me. Yeah. And I'm very lucky too, because I live in New Jersey and I'm close to Manhattan. And so we get a lot of good faculty at our events and things like that. So
yeah, that's really good. If you have access to like being at these conferences or whatever, those are really good. I mean, I live in Orange County, which is near LA. It's about an hour away. And I've never been to the LA SCBWI conference. Don't hate me, but I just never have been. So, and maybe one day I will go. I will go someday. But okay, so I want to kind of move on. So I was going to ask next, who or what were the integral people or organization that helped support you along the way? So, Anne, you had mentioned SCBWI, but Lauren, I was going to ask you, like, in your process of going through all this, you know, becoming agented, who in your life was integral to supporting you in this process? Would you have people that were supportive, or organizations, or anything?
Let's see. Well, obviously, after my parents, you know, for supplying the art supplies and that love and encouraging my creativity, you guys going, you know, participating in the KIDLIT art chat on Thursdays, even though I don't participate as much. When I first joined Twitter, I went almost every week, and it was so integral to helping me learn and get to know people in the industry, you know, learning from you guys, being in Discord servers with you, basically just connecting with people on Twitter, chatting, you know, asking, getting critiques, asking for advice, you know, words of encouragement. It all really helped to have that support system, because aside, you know, from my parents who would support as the best they can, they're not artists, and having that, you know, having that artist support of other artists, other writers, people in your industry who are rooting for you and encouraging you and giving you advice, it's really, really important to have that sort of to have those people in your corner. And I'm glad that Twitter connected me with so many talented people.
Yeah, it's a hard road for sure, right? And it is definitely nice to have people that you know that can kind of give you some wisdom. And who were the people in your life that were integral besides SCBWI in your journey?
Well, I would definitely say my family. I mean, I'm literally in my parents' basement right now, so they have been very supportive of this whole journey. I had some really great professors. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Eric Velasquez and his illustrations, but he was my children's book illustration professor, and I felt like I was a step ahead getting into the industry because I knew how to put together a book dummy, because he made sure we knew how to put together a book dummy. And then of course SCBWI. And then I want to mention too that, especially for anyone who is close to Manhattan, there's a group called the Children's Book Illustrator Group, and all their meetings are virtual right now, but they meet 3 or 4 times a year with an industry professional, and it's a little bit more cost effective than SCBWI. I hate to say it, but it is.
Oh yeah.
And it's a great group of people as well. So that I would definitely join that. And honestly, I would say the people that I've met through KIDLIT art, either on Twitter or through the New Jersey SCBWI, are just amazing. So
yeah, being in a community of people, you know, online, or just finding those group of people that are doing what you're doing, going through the process, is really helpful. And I know that's been helpful for me too. I know when I started doing the KIDLIT art chats years ago, and I can't remember, it was Scout Underhill at the time, we were doing these KIDLIT Twitter chats every week, and then we'd all be sad, you know, because at Thursday 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then when it was over, it was like, oh, I guess we'll see you next week. And then Scott was like, well, no, we should make a Discord server. So then we all kind of hopped on, and we've been on there ever since, and that's been really great. So let's see, I was going to ask you another, just a personal question, like in terms, before we get into your actual creative process, where you're sharing your work and stuff, like what were your own personal obstacles through these, you know, steps of your journey, whether it was, you know, getting an agent, or getting your book deal. We haven't even talked about your book, and we will definitely do that in a minute. But what were your own personal obstacles, Lauren, that you had throughout this process? Did you have any?
Surprisingly, yeah. Honestly, staying confident in my work, in my abilities, because it's like on the one hand you have peers and friends saying, oh my gosh, you're so talented, you know, your work is so great, you're going to go places, and then to turn around and have agents and editors and industry pros telling you like, no, you know, not yet, this needs work, I don't know where to place you. It's like it got very disheartening after a while, to the point where I was ready to just, I don't know, give up, do something else. So and that's still kind of something I think a lot of artists struggle with, and something I continue to struggle with even with the book deal. It's like, how did I get here? Am I supposed to be here? You know, imposter syndrome doesn't go away, unfortunately. There's no cure. So I think it's important to like understand the value of your work, and to be your biggest fan, and to have people around you who are, you know, there to support you, you know, be your cheer squad for those moments where you just can't cheer yourself on, which I think is really important. But ultimately, you got to be your biggest fan, and I am still struggling to be my biggest fan, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it.
That is amazing, Lauren. I mean, that's a concept that I'm twice your age, and I'm still trying to figure that out, like literally in my own personal life, just to be like my biggest fan. And that's really hard. Selena says profound applause. And imposter syndrome, I mean, I talked to Stephen Neary 2 weekends ago, showrunner of the Fungies and, you know, producer of Clarence on Cartoon Network, and he legit was like, yeah, I have imposter syndrome. It's like, what? I know this guy has like, you know, so many followers on Instagram, and is a showrunner and is producer, and has like made all kinds of animated shorts. And he's like, I don't know. Am I really good at this? It's like, come on, you know. But Anne, what are your obstacles that you've dealt with, or if you've had any, or if you're still dealing with?
Definitely. Well, imposter syndrome, like Lauren said, it doesn't go away. It's still bizarre to me that a lot of people think of me as an illustrator first, because in my brain, I'm a writer who illustrates. And I know that I'm good at illustrating. Like I've been recognized for my illustrations, and that's still
Clearly.
such a weird concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll sometimes be talking to friends and be like, well, you know, I'm not that great at drawing. And they're like, stop it, Anne. I'm like, well, I'm not. I just know how to work with my weaknesses and make them look good. Like, you learn at some point. I know I have to reframe that. But yeah, so definitely imposter syndrome. I also struggle with anxiety. That's been a big thing. So that can get in the way, especially in an industry that there's so much rejection. I do have a very thick skin, but like constantly thinking about like, oh, I got this book deal, but will I be able to sustain my career? And so that's been a big thing. And then generally over the pandemic, just being accountable. like you have to make your own deadlines especially when you're done with a book or when you're waiting for feedback and to keep moving forward. And so, I mean, the way I've handled that is I've had friends who we check in with each other once a day to see what we've gotten done or what we're working on. But yeah, it's a struggle.
Time management is another big thing.
What's that, Lauren?
I said time management is another big thing because there are so many hours in a day and they still manage to escape you.
Yes.
You know, so it's like having a schedule, especially when you're working on more than one project, or just to organize your life in general, is so important. Like with this book deal, I started using Google Calendar to like organize when I have homework due, because you know I'm still in school, deadlines for the book, you know how many pages I need to do a day, deadlines like when do I have to turn stuff in, and that has helped. But and so has like setting timers and like having certain times that you start work and stop work. I'm saying all this and I barely follow it, but it's very important that you organize your life, especially with that right there, especially once you know you have deadlines. You have deadlines, you have work to do, you have jobs to do, you have deadlines to meet. I've definitely found that deadlines actually help me to stay focused, because it's like the fear of not meeting that deadline is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
It's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And also just, it really shows you how many hours are in a day and how much work you can get done in a small amount of time if you focus. Because just for an example, the one of the books, the first book in the series that I'm working on that I am thumbnailing, the deadline is in September. But because of the way I worked and my own overzealousness to get this thing done, I managed to get like 75% done in the first 2 months just from scheduling, you know, setting time aside. So we're probably going to go into deadlines soon, so I won't tangent now, but deadlines, and especially flexible deadlines, are really good to have and negotiate for when you're working on like these bigger expansive projects, because for one, it gives you an opportunity to turn in work early, which always feels great, but also
I don't know what that's like.
but also to sort of get an idea, like basically always ask for more time than you need, and then figure out what your process is. So then, okay, so if I have 4 months to finish something and I get it done in like 2 or 2.5 or 3, and then the rest of the time, you know, you're budgeting for like family emergencies, or just, you know, you bust your arm roller skating or something, random stuff that happens. So it's good to plan not just for how fast you think you're going to finish a project, but also for the unexpected.
Yeah, that's good. That's true. I'm I've talked to my art director and editor about extending my deadline because I'm going through some really difficult things, and they were very kind. They were like, you know, it's just a book, you know, and thankfully they were, you know, very kind about that. Now in terms of like what this is going to do for my career, well, you know, right now I'm not really worried about that. I'm just trying to stay alive. So the idea is just to make sure that you can manage the work that you have. And I think you had mentioned to me before that you had some pretty awesome database with like either time management or project management. Was that you?
I don't, if it was me, I totally didn't.
Was it in your journal? Wasn't in like your, like you didn't have like a bullet journal or something, or
I do use a bullet journal and I use timers a lot. Yes, I do try to like take all my projects and break them down into as little steps as possible and then plan them out that way. Maybe that was it. I change my system up all the time. I can't I get bored of systems. So
Oh, that's funny. So like, yeah, I'm kind of the same way, but it's like, oh, there's an app to make me organized, but I need an app to remind me to use the app to that's making me organized. It just because I'm so bad at that. But the Google Calendar is really good, Lauren. I think, yeah, a friend of mine was telling me like, just put everything in Google Calendar, and I'd read that, you know, your whatever your work will fit the time that you give yourself. So if you give yourself, you know, 3 weeks to finish a project, you're gonna take all of that time, unless you're like Lauren and you're like figuring things out and doing it half the time. Brianna Young says Asana is a good project manager. I'll have to look into that. Thank you, Brianna. And Brigitta says that she loves this. Is it Asana? Yeah. Okay. You guys heard of Asana, Anne or Lauren?
my sister uses it at work, but she works in project management in the science lab. So
Yeah. You're like, okay,
I've
that's
tried Trello. Actually, it's very complicated. Like there's for me, it's just too many columns. It's too many columns.
yeah, I think there's got to be, everyone's got their own way of working. You know, their brain functions in different ways. So like for me personally, I've figured out that I like the Google Calendar, because what I'll do is I'll schedule something and color code it and say, okay, well, this is when I'm going to be working on it. And then if I actually do work on it, then I can keep it in my calendar. And then I can go back and I can search and see how long it took me, you know, how many hours a day. And I'll plan it out. Like I'll have like Blake Laser, and that'll be in orange. And then I'll have that in like several days that I'm supposed to be working on it. And that really works out for me. I wanted to talk about, just go back to really quick with the rejections, because I think it's important that everyone that's here kind of understands that that's part of the process of being a creator and putting your stuff out there and submitting to agents and publishers. It's just part of the process. And the way that I managed that was I started looking at it in terms of how many no's can I collect, instead of looking for the yes, because the yes, if you've done it enough times, hopefully you'll get to that point. But in the process of hearing the no's and the revise and the submission, revise and submit, then you're showing that you're dedicated and you're, you know, working on your craft and you're working on your writing. And for Lauren, your work, it got a lot of visibility, and you were seen by a lot of different people. But there was just a disconnect with where your art was and where your storytelling was. And that helped you to build your work so that you could eventually, you know, connect with Brit and have something that was really strong enough for you to get out there. And then Anne, you just kept working, and you just kept like, you know, going to those conferences and connecting with people. And that was really amazing. So let's see, I would love to hear you guys talk about your current projects. And this is where I'm going to let you guys kind of share your work with us. So Anne, if I'd love for you to share first. So Anne has a picture book coming out. When is it going to be released? When's the
September 14th.
When is it?
September 14th.
September 14th. Okay, that's soon.
It's in 49 days.
Oh my God, 49 days.
Oh, wow. I thought it was next year.
It is next year.
Oh my God.
You know, and like next year, as in like we were starting to talk about this like last year, right? And it is next year, right? Yeah. So it's 49 days, and it's Blob. So tell us about your project. While you're talking about this, let's see. Lauren, why don't you go ahead and drop your Twitter handle in the chat while Anne is talking about her project, and she's going to show us her portfolio, and then she's going to kind of tell us about how just her tips on creating a really strong portfolio, and and she's going to show us her portfolio that is award winning. Yes. Okay, go ahead and tell us all about Blob.
Okay, I'm gonna see if this will work. I have a Google slide presentation of Blob.
Wonderful.
I'm not allowed to show all of Blob yet. So
No, right.
I picked
not until 49 days.
Correct. So I picked some spreads to show and kind of walk you through how Blob came to be. All right, so let's see if this works. I've never done this on Zoom before, so.
All right.
So you'll have to tell me if it works.
I see it. It's coming. There it is.
Okay. Aww. So the way Blob started was as a joke between me and a friend, because I draw animals that basically look like Blob except with ears. And so nobody could ever tell what I was drawing. So I drew a skunk that somebody thought was a badger. I drew a squirrel that somebody thought was a cat. And so, like, joking to my friend Mike, I said, I should just write a book about a blob and just say, Ann Appert draws adorable characters. You might not know what they are, but they are cute. And that is how Blob came to be. So this was the first thing I ever drew for Blob. And I shared it on Instagram and Twitter. Let me see if this works. Yes.
So would you say that it was Mike Ciccatello?
Yeah.
He was integral in the development of Blob.
Yes. Mike Ciccatello has a lot to do with my career success.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. He's a great guy. But so because of him, I started doing these. So these were all things that I posted in my story on Instagram. And I'll read them just in case it's a little, I don't know what the screen resolution is, but it said, Blob is a creature of indeterminate kind, an ambiguous animal, if you will. Blob's talent is that Blob is a blob and can be whatever animal you want. It is? I can? Yes, any animal. I am rather flexible.
This is adorable.
And I kept going. Blob can be a panda. Everyone loves pandas, or a mouse. How do my whiskers look? So this was just me drawing these for fun. And then people were like, you need to make this an actual book. So at the time I was working at a college library, and it was a slow day at the library. So we had a pile, because it was at an art school, we had a box of scrap paper. So I wrote my first draft of Blob on this paper. And it actually didn't change much from this. This has never happened to me again, but this Blob was pretty much like, we did some word edits, but the story of Blob stayed pretty consistent. And then I wanted to show this when I was doing the final art. I kept forgetting things. Like, I actually got a note from my art director saying, you forgot the Blob's arms on this spread, or like, make sure that this is the right color. So I made myself a cheat sheet so I could remember which brushes I used for everything, what the opacity was for the shadows, what color Blob was, even though it should have been easy to remember. I made this character.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfect. I think this is great. This is great because if you keep that slide up, I did 4 books, and I had to make sure that Clyde was consistent, like the right purple in all 4 books. And then not only that, like the highlight shadow had to be the right purple, the shadow color had to be the right purple, and then the right brush if you're using, like, you use Procreate, right, for the book? Yeah. So you have to make sure your brushes are not changing, and and especially across different devices, the colors can look different. That's really important. So when you create this cheat sheet, it's literally your Bible. It's your visual Bible of what your rules are for your book, to make sure that this is just ensuring consistency. I think that's great.
So then this was the image on the top left was the first iteration of this in my book dummy. This is the one that I brought to conferences and stuff. And as you can see, it didn't actually change at all from the original drawings. And then when I sent it to my editor, I guess I should have talked about how I saw them.
I know we didn't even talk about that, but
I know
we can just talk about that right now, like the process, because we just kind of jumped into it. But what was the submission process like for this project and how it was acquired?
So when I first shared it on Twitter, at the time I had been talking to an editor at a house about a different project. We were kind of writing a project together based on one of the illustrations in my portfolio. And she saw this on Twitter and messaged my agent at the time to say, does Anne have a story for this? I want to see it. So at the time I typed up just the text version of the story. We didn't put together a book dummy because she already had a book dummy for me. And she brought it to her acquisitions team and they ended up passing on it. But because I got into acquisitions, it was kind of like a, oh, well, this can actually go somewhere kind of reminder, I guess. So then I put together a book dummy and I brought it to a conference. And I honestly have no idea who saw it because it was just tied in my portfolio. But again, like my friends were like, Anne, this is so great. This is going to go somewhere. And I'm like, I don't want to get my hopes up, but I really love Blob. So I hope you're right. And then we had sent it. So we sent it out to probably, I think, I want to say like 6 or 7 editors. And we had gotten mostly passes, including one from somebody at HarperCollins. And then who told us like, it's just not right for my list, but keep me in mind for other projects. It was great. And then I went to a portfolio review day in New York through the Children's Book Illustrator group, which I was telling people they should join if they're in the New York area. And I was actually supposed to meet with an art director that day, and they had a family emergency and couldn't come. And so the people running the event said, well, we have this editor from, I think at the time she might have been an assistant editor. Now she has been promoted, but like assistant editor from HarperCollins who's stepping in. Would you be okay showing your portfolio to her? I said, yes.
Of course, yes,
of course.
please. Yes.
Yes. So she saw I had pages. I didn't have the book dummy with me, but I had pages from Blob in my portfolio in preparation of the, hey, do you have a story to go with this illustration?
Yes,
and then I could say, yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
So she saw Blob, loved it, told me to have my agent send it to her. So I emailed my agent the next day to be like, I had this great review that she wants us to send it. And my agent emailed me back to say, actually, she's already reached out to me to have me send it to her. So it went to acquisitions, I think the next week. And then they gave us an offer for Blob. So I think we still had it out to 2 or 3 other editors and we just pulled our submission from them because they weren't as good as HarperCollins.
Right. Now, who's your editor at Harper?
Luana Hari.
Okay. We are also publishing house buddies because Blake Glazer is at HarperCollins too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay, so that's great. So, but I did want to mention, like, in the process of like when you do have an agent, just for those that are on the call, that the agent, like the agent's job is to take your finished work that they've helped you to finesse, and their job is to connect it with different editors, different publishing houses. And what they'll do is they'll usually submit to several at the same time. And that's like in a first round, they'll have like several editors that they'll submit to. And then if none of those editors are interested, then they might have a second round. And they usually will have a second round, and they'll, they'll send it out to that. And then, if nothing happens in the second round, then that means that you probably need to revise or, work on a different thing, or just, revise your story. And a lot of times sometimes they'll give you information like, we like this, but it doesn't fit in our list, or, we like the artist, but we already have a Blob story or something. Like maybe they'll just happen to have something that kind of fits already, that your story is similar to something that they've gotten, which is unfortunate because you cannot do anything about that. But yeah, so continue sharing with us about your Blob book.
Yes, I will go through this quickly because I do want to do a portfolio stuff too, and I do want Lauren to have enough time to.
Thank you.
So I thought it might be interesting for people to see like how it changes from first idea to what the final product was. Mm-hmm. So in the second image on the lower right, you'll see the text changed a little bit at this point, because at that point the editor had seen it and we'd gone through it. And then this is what I sent, I guess, to the art director. And then for the final one, oh, I have to click. We changed the background color, and then this is how it looks in the printed book. So just a couple
the background color.
Yeah. So a couple more pages that we changed. I love this slide because it shows that I I have great attention to detail most of the time, but you'll see that my speech bubble doesn't actually have the text on it. And this was the book dummy that I sent to people.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So from this is my favorite page in the book, I think. But from this page, my editor thought we needed an extra beat. So we went to the one on the lower right. And we had added this little illustration of Blob in there just as themselves. And then my editor decided we didn't need it. So we went to this, was what I sent them. And this is my terrible type. They had not designed it at this point. And this was a challenge for me because I had speech bubbles in my book, but it didn't occur to me that they would be on white backgrounds. So I had to figure out what color to make my speech bubbles. So I kind of did this thing, and they decided they liked the kind of pinkish red color better. So this is how it is. The colors are a little off here. I took these from the internet because I wanted to see what pages my publisher was sharing. So these are the ones this is how it is in the book. So
I see. So they went ahead and changed the color balloons to just all pink. That's interesting.
Yeah. So then I wanted to show you this. I don't usually show people the end of the book because I want to get them to buy it, but I thought people would this is the only thing that changed drastically in the process. So in the original version of Blob, they end up as president at the end because the message is, what does Blob want to be? Blob can be anything because they're a blob. So I thought it'd be funny for them to be president, but then in the current climate, it didn't feel as good.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw this in 2019, so it was, yeah. It just didn't feel as satisfactory of an ending. So then we kind of left it a little bit more open. Blob flying off and saying they can be anything, everything. That's what they're gonna do. Then we changed it. I really still love this image and would love to use it for something, but we decided to have a little bit more of a finalness feeling, I guess. I don't know what the right word for it would be for the end. So this is how it is in the book now.
That's awesome. Ooh.
There's glass. Their glasses.
Yeah, the glasses are right.
Cute.
So that's Blob. Comes out in 49 days. And then I'm currently working on my second picture book because my contract was for 2 books. And I have an image here that I just wanted to show because
yes.
It's going to look completely different. So, oh, I forgot about this. Sorry, I forgot about this slide. So the image on the left is the my original book dummy that I printed out to bring to conferences. And when it came time to design the cover, I'm not great at designing covers and I had no ideas. I ended up giving them 5 ideas, but my first idea was the idea that they ended up liking. So we just changed the scale of Blob and then got rid of some of the design things around the name. And then this is the cover.
Can't wait to see this on the shelves. It's going to be so cool.
Okay, and then this is the image I was talking about. So this is an image. It's not anywhere on my website. I did it during Inktober one year for Inktober, for a couple of years, I did a 30-day story. And so there were a bunch of images in this style. And so my editor wants my second book to be in this style. So it's going to look completely different from Blob and it's going to be a challenge, but I'm excited for it.
Why do you think it's going to be a challenge, Anne?
Because I don't work this way very often. So I have a lot of imposter syndrome because this was done by hand. I shouldn't say that. Digital art is also by hand. It was done with watercolor.
Yeah.
And pen and ink. And it feels like a lot more pressure to do something in a style that doesn't have an undo button.
Yeah.
However, I cheated a little bit, and I have found a way to make my art look more traditional more traditional watercolor on the iPad. And I'm going to see if I can do that, even if it's just as a backup to give myself some peace of mind for this project, because it feels very overwhelming.
Oh, wow. I feel that so much. I mean, being a digital artist and having that Control Z or the iterative saves is such a freeing thing. And yeah, Selena says the undo, but without having the undo button. It's so bizarre how that is so terrifying. Even though we've all grown up with drawing on paper, you know, and pencil and crayons and stuff. It's just there's just so much pressure now to get it right. And because you had such freedom and spontaneity in that initial sketch, right? And the thing that you did first, there wasn't any pressure, but now it's like, oh, we need a whole book.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I can do that. I just did that on the fly, but now you want me to do that whole book and that free, spontaneous, spirited feeling. I can't even feel that right now. Like, how do you do that? How do you get there? Maybe you need to like change your mentality in the process, or maybe you could like Peter H. Reynolds do a bunch, right? And just pick, like, maybe because it's supposed to be quick, or not quick, but it has that really,
it was quick,
right? It was quick.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could just do like, okay, I'm going to do 10 different versions of this page and just do it really quick and then choose the best one and be like, okay, this is the one that I like the best. And then just like move on by there. But that way you're not like, okay, this one has to be perfect. But then you can be like, okay, I'm just going to do it 10 times. I don't know. That's my suggestion to you. You can take it or leave it. That seems like a fun way to do it. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm still nervous about it, but I have to do it, so it will get done.
Yeah, you have to do it, so it'll get done. Do you want to go through your portfolio right now, and then we'll let Lauren kind of talk about her stuff after that, and then you can talk about your portfolio and like your tips for putting together a winning portfolio.
First tip: don't think about it as having to win anything.
Yeah, you don't have to win, just do your best, right?
So I am gonna I'm just doing this on my website because I thought that would be the easiest way to do it, and I'm probably gonna go through this pretty quickly because again I want to hear what Lauren has to say. But I did want to say that I'm going to be focusing most on my picture book illustration portfolio because that is what got the attention of art directors and things. I have started pivoting to older audiences because of the way my book contract is written. I have to take a little bit of a step back from picture books if I want to be subbing any materials right now. So I am also working on some graphic novels and things, but I thought my picture book illustration portfolio is the furthest along. So I'm going to focus on that right now. But I did want to start on this page so that I could show people. One of my tips is to organize your portfolio so when an art director comes to your web page and they're like, oh, we want to know if she does chapter book art, they know exactly where to look for it. Or if they want to look for graphic novel work, they know exactly where to look for it. So I'm going to start with how I develop my portfolio. So typically I try to keep it between 10 and 15 images. I think the general rule of thumb is not to go over 20 because you don't want to overwhelm art directors when they're coming to your website. I picked 15 because I like the way it looks as thumbnails on my website. All comes down to design. Everything's about design.
Yeah.
So the way I do it is basically I gather all the pieces that I like and then I just cut ruthlessly. Like if I like more than 15, I just like, is this showing my strongest work? If it's not and I just like it, it goes. And if I can't make the decision, I often take advantage of other illustrators and say, hey, can you look at this group of images and tell me which ones you would cut? And so then once I get it to like 10 or 15 images, I usually think about arranging them in an aesthetically pleasing way. I
Mhm.
will say that this is one of my less organized pieces because I've varied my color palettes more than I usually used to do. So like there's not as much of a connection, but I do try to connect them in some way. So usually I start with what I think is a strong piece. So in this, for now, I have this penguin piece as my first piece on my portfolio because I've gotten really great feedback on it from art directors. So it's a piece that immediately pops and catches their eye. Everything that I pick in my portfolio, I try to highlight what I can do well. And for me, I think that is telling a story in every image, using limited color palettes, and then also using humor or whimsy to get an idea across.
Whimsy.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking about as I'm adding each of these pieces to my portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So next I went with this, which is actually a similar color palette to the previous image. It's just the tones are a little bit different, but that's why this one is next when I was thinking about it. But again, it's characters in a moment telling a story. And so that's why it's on my website.
Adorable.
Again, this is very loosely connected, but again, it was a kind of a color palette, kind of trying to go through that and keep them connected that way. It's a different environment. Showing different environments in your portfolio is always a good idea. If you only draw, say, the beach, then art directors aren't going to ask you to do their book that takes place in a forest per se, because they want it spelled out. You should spell out what you can do on your website. This one is actually from a picture book dummy that was on sub and we just pulled it to do edits. So it got a lot of rejections, but I'm hopeful for this eventually that it will get back. But again, it's good to have it on my website because now if an art director or an editor sees it,
yeah, they can say, hey, we are interested. And they can say, well, good, because I'm working on edits.
Exactly. And so the next set of images that I have is another important thing to show in a portfolio is sequential images that have the same characters, because that shows that you can draw the same character consistently, which for picture books is important. And telling a story is obviously important.
Yes.
So I actually started this series with this piece. And then when people were responding to it, decided that I should expand it into the 3 images of a little kid using a trampoline to go to space. And now I'm working on a manuscript for it.
Excellent.
So again, thinking about how to organize it. So the connection was the night sky. So we go from one space picture to this. And in this one, I wanted to show it because it's not a humorous piece, but it shows like I like to try to twist the expected in a picture. So it looks like bunnies trying to catch fireflies, but it's actually little fallen stars instead. Just something I like to do in my pieces.
I love your colors. They're so great. And your characters are adorable.
Oh. Thank you. They are, as you can see, though, very blobby. So, yeah. So this one I included because it has a lot of, sorry, I know my internet connection is bad and I apologize.
You're okay.
Okay. But this one I included because it shows a lot of characters in one scene. So it shows that I can do, you know, a little bit of depth, a kind of ensemble cast of characters, but then each little moment is showing its own little story as well. This is the piece that's behind me. This is the one that connected me with my agent the first time. And again, I've included this because it shows kind of like a twist on the expected. At the time, I don't know if this is as unexpected anymore, but when I was doing it, a lot of people were doing things like boats in the sky or whales in the sky. And I was like, what would happen if you brought something from the sky into the ocean instead? And that's how I.
Wow.
That's really cool. Yeah. I don't think I've seen this one before, and that's really nice. I mean, I saw it on your wall behind you, but I don't think I had seen it before. So, and you said this one, what was that piece is notable?
This one,
the other one,
the last one, this one.
Yeah, was it this one or the other one? The white one with the. Sorry, my brain's not working. The one before that.
This is no. This one was a commission for my sister. So
okay, and then the one before that was notable.
This one was, every year for the conference, I try to do one new piece. If I'm going to a conference, I try to at least have one new piece. So this was a piece that I did for the winter conference and was actually part of the portfolio that won an honor.
Okay, got it.
So
thank you.
And then this piece was the one that won an honor at the New Jersey conference in 2018.
Cool.
So this one I included because it's also important to draw people.
Cool.
I also like this one because there's something I like to do in my pieces, which is try to put a little bit of myself in some of them. So I don't know if anyone noticed this, but the little teddy bear that this kid has is the same teddy bear that the space kid had, and is actually my childhood teddy bear. So
I love that. You know what? I'll just say that I've done the same thing. I've drawn the same teddy bear in all of my, if there was ever a teddy bear, it's always the same teddy bear, and it's not mine, but it's my son's. And it's just like a standard teddy bear, but it's specific. But I think that's adorable. It's very cool to have like the little personal Easter eggs.
Yeah, I like to do it. So. I didn't put it in Blob though. I should have put the bear somewhere in Blob, but it didn't occur.
Next time. Blob too.
So
Blob's bear.
Yeah, maybe Blob could get it there. I just like to draw bunnies, and also again, it's a different setting. Okay. And then these are a little bit different in tone and a little bit. I would think that if this were a style that would be used for a picture book audience, it would be for a slightly older audience. But again, there's a little bear. And then this is another set that I did a sequential series for.
Oh, that's great. It's such a great movement in that.
Okay, there's the last one. So basically when I'm putting together a portfolio, I think about what do I want people to know when they look at my portfolio about what I like to do. So they should know what you enjoy drawing, but there should be a variety of things in your portfolio. It should show that you are consistent as an artist, which I want them to see. So I don't know if you probably all notice things about my portfolio that I don't even see because I see it all the time. But the things that I try to be consistent is limit color palettes, do something that's a little unexpected, and tell a story. So then I don't know if you want me to go through the rundown of like the tips and stuff that I have.
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. So I'll go through this quickly. Sorry, Laura. I feel like
no, just
no, it's okay.
That's okay. I'd love that. I'd love for everyone here to kind of hear your tips on building a portfolio.
All right. So this was helpful because we actually talked about this on KIDLIT art a couple weeks ago. So it was still fresh in my brain. So my general advice of what should be included in a KIDLIT portfolio is children, some adults, and animals, probably anthropomorphized, in a variety of settings, doing a variety of things, and expressing a variety of emotions from various perspectives with a narrative element. So obviously you should have children because picture books are geared towards children. I need more adults in my portfolio, I've been told, because when a picture book has a child, they often have an adult that goes with them. So something to think about. And animals, obviously, because children love animals and they can sometimes relate to them. I always loved animal books better as a kid. And I obviously love drawing animals. And then it's important that they're doing all sorts of different things because, again, picture books will cover all sorts of various topics. So you want to make sure that you have a variety of different actions so it doesn't look like you're a one-note artist. Same thing for a variety of emotions. People experience all sorts of emotions: fear, wonder, joy, sadness, and these should all be, or not all, you can't do everything in one portfolio, but you should have a variety of these as well. And obviously when you're including people, they should be appropriate to your audience. So if you're doing picture books, they should look like probably like they're 7 or younger because picture books go up to generally 8. Then for chapter books, maybe 8 to 12. 12 might be pushing it a little bit. And then so they should look right. So like if I had a teenager in this portfolio, that would be a little weird because picture books, you probably won't have a teenager unless your character has an older sibling.
But you have your chapter middle grade section, and so that would be appropriate in that section of your portfolio, right?
So if you looked at this on my website, you would see that they're all a little bit, the characters are a little bit older. I don't know if you can see them in the thumbnail. So general tips are, my biggest tip, which if you don't remember anything else I have said today, this is the most important thing to do for getting into KIDLIT, I think, is read books in the industry that you want to be part of. If you want to do picture books, you need to be reading picture books. If you want to do graphic novels, you need to be reading graphic novels. If you want to do chapter books, etc. Because by doing so, you'll learn what's on the market. You'll also learn different options for illustrations. Like you'll be able to see in a picture book, what is this artist doing that's really successful that I can bring into my own work, while leaning on your own strengths, like, which for me, you can tell is color and telling stories. That's what I like. And then I think getting professional feedback is great, even if it's not from an art director or an editor, from another illustrator in a critique group. You should be getting feedback on your work. But when you get feedback, I learned this from an art director, and I think I don't like redoing art. So this changed the way I think about feedback. He told me, don't redo your art. When you go to create new art, incorporate the feedback you've been given while still keeping your strengths in that piece. Which I liked, because again, I don't like redoing art unless it's for a book and I have to, but if it's for a portfolio, I'm not going to redo it.
So like, say if someone had said to you, okay, well, I like this particular piece, but these are the things that I'm noticing about your work and that I think that you could strengthen. Instead of going back and redrawing that piece, you just do a completely new piece and utilize your strengths, but add the comments that the art director told you.
Yeah. So for example, the penguin picture that I have, I love that picture and I keep it in my portfolio for now. But one of the critiques I got from that was that I like to use saturated color, which is true, but to think about using color in a way that draws attention to the part of the illustration that you want the focus on. So then when I did the bunnies in the field with the stars, I made sure that the yellow was the brightest part of that illustration because that's where I wanted the eye to go.
I see. That's really great.
And then my second thing then, this is for me, and I think that when you're in KIDLIT, it all comes back to story. It always comes back to story.
Yep.
We are illustrating books.
Yeah, it's a book, the story.
So your art should also tell a story.
And
those are my tips.
Awesome. That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Your work is beautiful, and I hope everybody can support you and get Blob and when it comes out in 49 days, and you'll let us know either on Twitter. Go ahead and drop your Twitter handle in the chat while Lauren goes into her talk now. But you guys can, one way that you can support Anne and Lauren, following them on Twitter. Lauren has a Patreon, and when their books come out, either purchase them or go to your library and ask your library to request the book for sure, because we want people to buy our books, don't we? Also, you can do the same thing for Clyde if you haven't already. So just gonna throw that in there. I just wanted before I go ahead, Lauren. What were you gonna say?
No, I'm still warming up. I got everything set up. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that I had a little sad moment the other day because I went to Barnes and Noble, and it was the second time I'd been to my local Barnes and Noble, and this was the Barnes and Noble that I was supposed to have our debut launch at, but it didn't happen because COVID, blah blah blah. And so I went in there, and I just go in and I say, hey, I'm here because I'm looking for a book, and I would like to sign the books that you guys have on copy and see if you guys can, prominently display them somewhere with a little sticker that says signed by the author. And they said, yeah, sure. And they looked on their site. They said that they had 4 in stock, only 4. And then they proceeded to look for them because they're 8 by 8. So they go on this little spinner rack. And the spinner rack is the rack where like when the moms come in with their kids and they do story time, they just like take the books out and then they read them and then they just throw them back on. So they only could find one of my books. And I was like just kind of standing there with my mask on, like trying not to show my disappointment. So I signed one, and hopefully they'll find the other three. But you know, that's my story, my sad little story.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of a bummer. And I'm in there going like, well, there's Charlene Chua's book. There's Jen Harney's book over there. I can find her book. Huh. Well,
Oh no.
whatever.
Hopefully they restock soon.
I know. Well, whatever. So, okay. So Lauren, Lauren, you were talking about your webcomic and how you developed that for 3 years. And now you've got your graphic novel that you're working on, the first of 3. So we'd love for you to share your anything you got of your process, the evolution of your characters, anything.
Okay, so let me just share my screen right now.
And Caleb is here in the house. He just joined us. Hi, Caleb. Thanks for being here.
Okay, so screen 2. Let me see. Do I have it?
Can you share your screen? You should be able to.
Yes, I'm going to share
All
it
right.
right now. Okay. So this is just standby illustration. The first thing I'm going to do, since that's probably going to be the easiest to find the older art, is show you my DV pitches.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay,
so this was the first one I ever did. It is loading. So here, this is the pitch format. This was the one I did when I was supposed to be writing an essay in the computer lab at school. And these are pages from my webcomic. I think this was the second reboot, and these characters are named Evelyn and Avery. And Avery is obviously not a human. He's a little skunk, and their world is basically semi-realistic in that there's humans, but there's also anthropomorphic animals, and everybody's okay with it because that's just how the world works. But it's largely inspired by, like, you know, old PBS shows like Dragon Tales or Arthur, or basically those sort of magical realism where it's fantastical, but it's still kind of grounded in the sense. That's kind of, I'm a big fan of like magical realism and grounded fantasies. So I poured a lot of that into these pitches. And then this is another pitch that I cars. So this is my second attempt at DV Pit, and this was yet another reboot when I had stopped drawing the comic altogether and decided, okay, I gotta pitch this as a book. So this is a pitch. This is a sample. The style changed a lot from the initial webcomic to this first book pitch. And if you go on the website really quick, you can kind of see some of the original pages here. So this was my, I think, third attempt at webcomic / pitching. And as you can see, I was going for a much more, I was still going for painterly, but it was still a simplistic painterly style. Because at the time I was reading a lot of, you know, Katie O'Neill books. So like the Tea Dragon Society, Aquacorn Cove. So I was really inspired by that style. And it influenced my work at the time a great deal.
Yeah, I can see that.
So these are the samples. This pitch, unfortunately, did not work out because while the art was great, the story was not. So I had to try again. Fast forward to my commercial story pitch that more or less fell apart, still being drafted, you know, trying to figure out how to make it work, and that image is not loading.
Well, it says when I was going to look at what it said. When gifted a magic necklace on her 10th birthday, Maggie discovers the worlds and characters. She realized, okay, that's adorable.
Yeah. And this is the pitch that got a lot of attention, which unfortunately fell apart, like I said. And then from there, I was able to pitch Evelyn and Avery one last time, and it was this time that the story was finally at a place where an agent saw its potential and wanted to work with it. And these are drafts from an old comic that I kind of scrapped. So yeah, this is basically the format for pitching at DV Pit. You see, these are your comparison titles, which are basically books that are similar to the book you are trying to make. This is the summary of the book to give people an idea of what you're trying to write, and then hashtags, you know, so graphic novel, chapter book, picture book with color. So
and your contact information.
Yeah, and portfolio contact. And from there, once I signed with my agent and worked on the pitch, we were able to. I was able to start working on the new sample pages, which I'm going to show here. So, okay, I'm rambling, but I'm still getting nervous. But basically,
don't be nervous. These are so cute. So good to see these.
Yes. So this was the earliest draft for the pitch. This is after I signed with my agent and we worked on the outline, and I was working on sample pages. And as you can see, these sketches are very loose, but you can still get an idea of what's going on, because my sketches tend to be very refined because I don't like inking. It feels like an extra step. So I try to make my sketches as clean as possible so that I can use them for inks, which is why this pencil looks super tidy. This page and cookies, so scrolling faster, is essentially when you're thumbnailing, it's good to be loose with your sketches. Now, these are very, very refined.
Are these your thumbnails?
These were initially my thumbnails. I'm going to show what my thumbnails look like now in a second. Okay. But these were my initial thumbnails because I was really keen on making sure my pages were readable. But ideally, you just want to get your idea down. Just get your idea down and then save like getting super detailed for like your pencils or your inks, etc. And from there, we ended up cutting the first three pages and jumped right to this one. So these are the finals of my sample pages right here. So I took some liberties with like the characters designs and the background details. You see here, this background image was actually a reference. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but this is a photograph. I lowered the put pasty on and sketched over to help make this background.
This is exactly what we were talking about this week in graphic novels, because we, right, Caleb, we've got the artists creating backgrounds for their panels. So yes, Linus is like, so glad to see you are actually doing this.
Yes, so references are great. Even the pros use them. Never be ashamed to use photo references or make your own references in like Blender. um, it's very important. If you want to draw backwards and you want to draw them good, references, take lots of photos.
Somebody was using Sims backgrounds in their graphic novel. I saw somebody posted in Discord. So I don't play Sims. I don't play any of those games, but like I know somebody was using Minecraft and developing and just using those 3D worlds that you can navigate and basing their backgrounds on that as reference. It's pretty cool. Yeah, you should do it, Selena.
And so I'm just gonna scroll through, and this is the end of the pitch. So Animal Crossing basic, honestly, games like Animal Crossing, the Sims, Minecraft, they're great if you feel overwhelmed by the idea of like trying to use Blender, or if 3D design just isn't your thing, because it takes a lot of the like technical work out of it and allows you to just be creative.
Yeah.
Right. So like with the Sims, you have different wallpaper you can use, different furniture. So it helps to sort of add character to your designs. So you can kind of in the back of your head think, what kind of house would my character live in? What would their bedroom look like? Where would they work? What would this specific location look like? How would it be designed? And that helps a great deal, because like I use the Sims to design stuff, and it's helped improve my backgrounds a lot.
That's great. Now, Anne works in Procreate, and she's got a book that she's going to be working on, traditionally, crossing her fingers, right? That's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome no matter what. I'm not crossing the fingers for that. I have no doubt. But Lauren, you use what to create your artwork? What's your process?
I use Clip Studio Paint, and I've been using it probably since 2018, at least high school. It's a really good program. I use the EX version, which is a little more pricey, but it's a one-time payment, and it has all the features you need, comics, illustration, hand-drawn animation, frame by frame, and a whole library of like creator-made assets, company-made assets. It's a really great tool with great resources. There's tutorials online. It's very good. I highly recommend. It's a lot of people struggle with it because it's a little different from Photoshop, because I know Photoshop is industry standard, but for me, the transition wasn't really that hard, because like the layouts are the same, the blending modes. The blending modes are the same, the name the same. It's just a matter of getting used to the new format, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, Clip Studio is really awesome. Yep. Danny Duck says the same.
So if we still have time, I was actually going to show a quick process video.
Yes.
Yeah, a little speed paint of one of my illustrations. It's sped up, but
absolutely,
this is kind of like how I plot my illustrations. So there's no sound. So I usually start with like a rough sketch, lots of round shapes, round friendly shapes, circles, lots of curves. And I try to nail the pose as early as possible. So you see it's a lot of trial and error, a lot of erasing and redoing to sort of make sure that the poses aren't stiff, but are also just are animated, like they have a sense of life to them. Because it's very easy to, when you overplan your drawings, they tend to be stiff, but when you underplan them, that's kind of when you run into troubles like, one eye being bigger than the other, or like misshapen hands or hairstyles. So it's good to find an in-between where you're experimenting, but also you have a sense of where you're going. Like, it's good to have a sense of where you're going. and my process tends to be really streamlined.
I love watching these things, and this is great to see your process here too. See how you're refining things, adjusting. Yeah, and when you start off with that really nailed down gesture that's got a really clean silhouette, your forms are defined, and then you understand how you're going to be developing the details like the fingers and the see, yep.
Yep.
Redoing the hands, redoing the hair, doing different things to try it out. It's great to see this.
Lots of trial and error.
Care Bears and strawberry shortcake. That's what your style reminds me of, says Selena.
Those are some of my biggest inspirations, so I wanted to hear that. I love the nostalgic stuff. Lots of 80s influence in my work.
Mm. And a dash of Munchie cheese, says Caleb. Oh my goodness, you're taking me back.
Oh, I've heard of that, but I've actually never watched the show.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was a toy brand too.
Yes, everything in the 80s was toys. Then they were toys, and then they had the
toys, cartoons, and cereal.
Yep.
And then, okay, so this video is almost done. So here I'm experimenting with the color and backgrounds. I tend to unfortunately treat backgrounds. So I'm just going to close. Unfortunately, I tend to treat backgrounds as an afterthought, which isn't great, but a good thing to keep in mind when you are, especially if you're a character artist, is to take the time to figure out where your character is. Like, you don't have to draw a full background. Sometimes like a prop or two, like a beach ball, or just drawing some grass, tufts of grass on below their feet to give a sense of place, definitely adds to the piece more than it takes away. And it's just a good way to like shorthand scenery until you get more comfortable with like full backgrounds.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I would definitely say that adding some kind of element to create a narrative of your artwork is definitely, I think, integral. And whether you do a full background or whether you're just doing something so there's not just a character floating in space, you know. Thank you so much for sharing your work, Lauren, with us. And that process is so great. And thank you, Anne, for all the stuff that you shared with us too. So we got like 6 minutes left, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. I didn't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody has a question, please go ahead and just like raise your virtual hand. If you go down to the reactions at the bottom, you can like the reactions with a little emoji and the plus sign. And you click on that, you can raise your virtual hand and you can ask a question and then it'll pop up. Caleb, do you have any questions? Oh, can Laura? Yeah, Lauren, can you share your portfolio site? Oh, she left. What happened? I'm gonna let her, she dropped out. Hold on a second. Okay.
Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi, everything froze.
Oh no. So Caleb was asking if you could share your portfolio, if you would be willing to do that.
Oh, sure. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so.
And Selena had mentioned that, and I saw this really quick, but I had to like say something. Clip Studio now has time-lapse capability?
Yes, that's time-lapse. That video you just saw was a Clip Studio Paint time-lapse.
When did you do that?
I think it came out earlier this year, so the spring, like March.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's when my life started to go a little bit crazy. So of course I don't know anything that's going on in the world from like March till now.
It's a really good feature. So let me just share my screen very quickly. Uh, let's see here.
Caleb says he lives in a horrible nebula of chaos too. Yeah, just floating in horrible nebulas of chaos, intertwining with others for brief moments of joy.
So, my portfolio is pretty bare bones. I am a firm believer that less is more, and I try to put not just the pieces I like the most, but the pieces I feel are the strongest and most reflective of the kind of work that I want to do. So, like, just read here. This piece was illustration I did for one of my pitches that I'm still developing. It's one of my favorite pieces, and also I feel like technically one of my technically the best. So you see there's like use of lighting and lighting on the face. I experimented a lot with like shadows and sort of like design. So, and then this one's a bit more recent. This is just a fun little bear character with these two kids, which is definitely not based off of a video game that I no longer play. So, so with this, I was just having fun, experimenting with colors, trying to get sort of a playful romper room kind of vibe. So you see, you got stickers on the faces, band-aids to show the rough house a bit, and like a rainbow background, sort of give that fun, bright 80s vibe, you know.
Yeah.
This one is a bit more experimental, one of my more mature pieces, which are few and far between. I wanted to try and go for something that felt otherworldly.
Beautiful.
So it's like it's based off a Bible verse, so I kind of wanted it to keep it like sort of, I guess, otherworldly, but like also sort of royal. I'm trying to find the words, like royal, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's like sort of just to give her sort of an air of royalty, like otherworldly royalty, basically.
It's gorgeous.
And
ethereal.
Yeah, ethereal. And then with this is fan art. Out of the box.
No, out of the box. Sorry.
Out of the box. One of my favorite shows growing up.
Out of the box. Sorry, my kids watched it.
I definitely pulled a lot of 80s, 90s nostalgia with this. You know, lots of bright colors. Sort of have a 3D effect on the characters and the background. And of course, rainbow motif in the back to sort of just amplify those fun, you know, Playhouse Disney preschool afternoon vibes.
Disney. Yes, totally. Love it.
And this, of course, is Evelyn and Avery.
Yes.
I made this for one of the pitches. It's still one of my more complex pieces with the layering in the background to sort of show a sense of depth, the shading on the clouds, and the shadow of the tree house, and I'm sitting near the tree. This piece in particular was largely inspired, like I said, Katie O'Neill's work, so, you know, Tea-Dragon Society, Tea-Dragon Tapestry, those things like that, because I was, and also Cucumber Quest, because I was really into like that painterly, bright, candy, cotton candy style, and I wanted to play with that for the longest time. And then this is another Evelyn Avery piece, sort of a spoof of Alice in Wonderland with some of the other characters in the story. Again, with this one, I wanted it to feel like otherworldly, you know, this afternoon or or early evening tea in the woods with these cute creatures in fancy attire, and this little girl just taking it all in. So
Adorable.
yeah, that's my illustration portfolio in a
That's
nutshell.
beautiful. That's so beautiful. And your work is so like heartwarming and catching to so many people with the nostalgia and the color palette and things like that. It's no wonder that, you know, your work is so popular. So thank you for sharing that. And then okay, so Lauren, Anne,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here and sharing your work with everyone, sharing your experience with everyone, taking the time out of your day to be here with us. And I did, before we go, before everybody goes, I just wanted to do a quick shout out because Kevin Bell is here. And Kevin, do you mind, you guys just hold on just 1 or 2 more minutes, because Kevin Bell was one of our students in a visual storytelling class, a drawing for animators class, and he's been taking classes with me and with Mira's Children's Book Academy. Kevin, are you here? Can you come on camera or no? No? Okay. Well, I know he's
Yeah,
here.
I'm here.
Okay. Where are you at?
Let me see if I can turn this thing on.
Okay. Are you wearing a hat?
No, not today.
Not today? Okay. If that's okay. So, and Caleb, I wanted to make sure that Caleb heard this too, because Kevin reached out to me. Yes.
I can't get my camera to turn on.
Oh, okay. Well, figured out as I'm telling everybody your news. Okay, so Kevin reached out to me yesterday and said, I wanted to take some time personally to thank you for your mentorship during the class with Children's Book Academy and OC Art Studios. He said, I've learned a lot since such a short time as a result of one of the golden tickets he got with the Children's Book Academy. He has just signed his first book deal with Gnome Road Publishing.
Congratulations.
I know, right? Isn't that amazing? And he's going to be doing his first middle grade cover art and black and white spot art for Sandra. I don't know who Sandra is, the owner's book. And he said, thanks again also for keeping us in the loop. Yep. And also retire from my job of 32 years this Friday to become a full-time artist.
That's the dream.
That's the dream, living the dream. Kevin, congratulations. That's amazing. I just wanted to do that here in this forum because yes, heart is so full because we've worked with you, and it's so great to see. It's so great to see this happening for you. So congratulations.
I still can't believe it. I'm excited.
We're excited for you. Yay. So anyway, thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you, Kevin, for being here and letting me share your news with everyone. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Lauren. Caleb, thanks for coming in. You guys, I hope that you can continue to join us for future events, continue to take classes with OC Art Studios. And Anne, Lauren, anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
Anything, Anne?
Well, first of all, at least I'm in the Discord too. So if anybody thinks of any questions that they want to ask and they don't know what they are at this time, just tag me. I am around typically.
Yes, absolutely.
And also,
sorry. I
was just gonna say it and just
no, keep going. Okay. I'm also a mentor in the Discord server, though I kind of lurk because I am working. But if my DMs are open, if anyone ever wants to reach out for like advice or to look over your work or your graphic novel pitches, like that is my expertise. You want to talk comics? I'm here to talk comics.
Yes.
So tag me, DM me. Don't even worry about it.
Okay.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you for your offer of that. That's fantastic. All right. I'm going to go ahead and sign off then. Thanks everybody so much for being here, for supporting what we do, and for showing up. And to Anne and Lauren again, thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day. For those of you in the drawing class, we'll see you tomorrow. Graphic novels, we'll see you the next day. You guys have a great day. Bye.
Bye.